In. Who do we got?
We got we have Sensei Lonsdale, of course, Hanchi Legacy. We have Big Al Panacchia, one-time guest of the show, super fan. We have a gentleman named Jason Carter, not 100% sure who that is. We have Pamela Swino. Rochelle is on the call, as often is the case, and of course, Sensei Wadi's on the call right now as well.
Amazing. So, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Punch Kick Choke Chat. Sean's still catching up with his life and things that have been going on, but he promises that he'll be here next week. Um, I told him today that people are getting used to him not being here, and he said, "Oh no, I'll be there next week for sure." So he'll be here. He'll be here next week. Um, thanks for joining live. If you're joining us on the Zoom call, or if you're on YouTube watching live later on, or on Spotify, please give us a like. It always helps us share this out with people. We don't get paid anything for this, and we're really just trying to promote it. So please do that. I'm here with the two co-hosts and creators, with myself, Hachi Gary Legacy, and Sensei Nicholas Suino. And yeah, we're going to jump right in out of the gate, Sensei Lonsdale. We're here with you, and we're going to do a big formal introduction for you after the first question. But you're a person who's actually created your own system, which is kind of unique. We haven't had a lot of people who created their own system. And so I want to ask you why and what inspired you to create your own system, that system being Saishin Do, and maybe give us a little information about it, how you put it together, and why you decided to do that.
Sure. It wasn't by way of wanting to create a system. Actually, it was the fact that I knew that my martial arts career was winding down because of some personal strife that I had experienced. And I ended up studying under Mr. LaMonica in Ohio, and then more personal problems landed me in New Jersey without any support. And the new career that I undertook, the scheduling was such that I couldn't be consistent in either teaching or training. I did manage to teach a self-defense course at a community college, and I took a few classes at different Shotokan places, but I wasn't getting anywhere because of the scheduling. But I was very despondent, and I thought, well, just to keep my brain together, if I were to study fresh again, what kind of martial art would I look for given my background? And so I just picked and selected different aspects of the martial arts that I did study and put it together. And then I introduced into it a philosophical basis, so that each level has a slight philosophical basic tenet for as you go up. And so I thought that was all well and good. And I thought, well, let's make it into a book. And I had a friend in the publishing business that he and his wife made the book for me. And I thought, well, this is just great. I don't have any students and I'm not teaching, but at least my thoughts are on paper. And then I saw Soki Daniel Verkek from Seicho Jutsu in Kitchener. And I forget where I saw it, but it was basically an application. If you're going to do this, submit what you have and they'll review it and they'll take it from there. And I thought, I've got nothing to lose. So that's what I did. And then after a while, I got contacted by him, and through me sending tapes and all my documents, and then a lot of personal interviews with him at his dojo, lo and behold, he accepted my proposals and put me forward to the I think it's the World Sokuship Family Council, and I got into it was a Hall of Fame out in Connecticut. And I mean, I could have taken it even further, but again, my schedule prevented me from doing that. What this did allow me to do, though, was pass on the syllabus that I'd written, shared it with my senior students, and some with the background of jiu-jitsu and Jukaru, which is, of course, the late Professor Morris's syllabi. And so they started teaching, and then the one friend of mine I worked with at Blue Water, he opened up a dojo in Kincardine, Ontario, and he had like about 110 students. So what happened was, when I did get a weekend off, I would go and travel up there and do seminars and help grade and things like that. That's how it started.
So what is that system based on? We're going to get into your background. You have a, a deep background in many different martial arts, but maybe you could talk us through a little bit of how did you pick and choose from the different things to put that into your system?
My first and foremost thing was about self-defense. I'm not a fighter. I've never been a fighter. I mean, of course, I've competed in karate, but um, I will say that when I was a brown belt in Shotokan, I thought I was pretty tough. And then I started, this is in 77. I started in corrections, and I realized the first day, I'm not tough. The people that I'm working with, they're pretty tough. And the people that I was, guarding are even tougher. And that really humbled me a lot. And I learned a lot psychologically that way. And then so from that was my basis. And the other thing that I wanted to infuse the syllabus with was that it wasn't necessary to be harmed in order to learn how not to get harmed should the aspect of being harmed present itself. I'd taken seminars where I've actually seen black belts cowering in the corner because they got, you know, um, how do I say this so politely? They were chastened by the instructor.
Don't say
Uh,
it politely. Just say it the way you want to say it.
Well, I mean, they were all black. We're all black belts. You can take a hit, right? And the idea was that um, you had to be able to do that. And I just thought this isn't self-defense. You're not going to do that in competition. I was wondering what the reason was for that. I didn't really think it added anything to the learning experience, and I wasn't going to be critical about it, and I'm not critical about it. But I just thought that was an aspect that I'd like to tone down. So that was the one thing. The other thing that I really wanted to infuse the syllabus with was the sense of I hope I'm getting this right, but I think the Japanese call it shikata, the way of doing things, whether you're sawing wood or writing in calligraphy, there's a way to do it, a proper way, and that struck me, and so I wanted to do that, and I learned that from Hakuryu Jiu-Jitsu from the organization in Japan and that Mr. Lamonica taught, which evolved into Hakoden Shinryu.
Okay. Suino Sensei, do you know the word that he's pulling together? Is that correct?
It's a very literal word. She got that right. It just means, yeah, literally means the shape of how you do something.
Um, Sensei Suino, while you didn't create your own system, you did spend some time really analyzing your system and what worked and what didn't work. And um, so building on what Lonsdale Sensei was just talking about, like, where did you land on that with the style of Iaido that we do? How close is it to what we're doing with Yamaguchi Sensei?
I, yeah, that's a great question. It's uh, uh, in theoretically, it's very close on the basis of theory and philosophy. It's very close. I haven't changed much, but what I did after I remember how many years, maybe after 15 or so years or 20 years of study, I just decided to spend a year and look at every aspect of it that I could and try to figure out what was just dogma, right? Sort of style, and what was really effective. And I can't say I'm perfect at it, right? It was just an exploration that I did for a year and a half. And at the end of that time, I just concluded that something like 85% of what my teacher taught me was more or less literally true, and I should continue to do it just like that. And then the other things were things that I thought were more culture based or style based. And not that you abandon those because you're studying a style. I wasn't trying to make a new one or make it generic, but I just found that there were more efficient ways to deliver power, um, and that was a great process. I learned so much about some of the. Oddly enough, maybe paradoxically, I learned a lot about what my teacher had been telling me for so many years by sort of trying to move away from it, and then ended up locks. I mean, as far as like my martial arts idols, my teachers, I hold him in higher esteem than ever, even after all of that work and many years of trying to understand the art. But yeah, that was my process. A year and a half of just saying, oh, I'm throwing everything out. What comes back? and most of it came back.
Mm. Since legacy, I know, you when you started in karate, you always said it was like a combination of like Shotokan, Chito-ryu, some Goju-ryu thrown in there, and then you made a decision at some point that you were going to be a Shorin-ryu person and you were going to take these. And I know you hunted down all of that system, and then excuse me, you trained that system for a long time. But now I know sometimes you look at things differently, and we've not big things, as Sensei Suino's saying, but you've changed some things for what is some of the rationale that you use for changing something in our system? Like, why do you decide to do that? And
Well, I always like to say I use something else for an example, like hockey changes. Like if you put McDavid in a rink 50 or 60 years ago, he'd probably score 40 goals in a game. Uh, so we're hoping, and with a bit of work, it's our time to make sure that the martial art still survives and progresses. And it's changing as it goes along. So during our time, from the training, there are new discoveries, and then I myself add my little bit and pass it on to my students, and they add their little bit. So it's uh, hardly noticeable, but it is changing all the time. So, um, like I said, and I think the people are learning more and more now and are traveling more and more to Okinawa, and karate is becoming, um, just to keep peace, almost as good in Canada and the United States and other countries as in Japan, because it's like hockey. The Japanese play hockey now, and they play good hockey, right? So, and my idea was to try to make it quality as opposed to uh, uh, putting baloney and different things in there, wearing half purple and half banana colored uniforms and 35 stripes on your belt and everything. So, what I did, as you know, you were there through all the steps. Legacy Shoryu, which the word legacy just happens to be my name, but you actually are the one who used it to say that this is the martial art handed down from generation to generation, meaning that because we're a classical dojo, we still get some of Matsumoto's teaching, Itosu's teaching, Funakoshi's teaching, and down the road, right? So it's not just the idea of one person; it's an idea of the persons who of that style. And lately, the white crane is floating around since 1978 or 82 when Hohan Sokan passed. He told his students to include the Okinawan crane. And that's just what I've done. I haven't changed anything, just little things, but I'm probably one of the only school, if not the only school, that's looking at it in that way, where the end part or the senior part of Shorin is white crane. And I've just applied that.
thank you, Sensei. Lonsdale Sensei, how long was the process for you? You did this. Give people a sense of like how long and how did it evolve? Was it just like you went by yourself, you did this, and then released it out, or were you bouncing it off of people? Was it over weeks and then some things made it in and you chucked some things out? Like, what was your methodology to putting this together in the timeline?
I can't quite recall how long it was. It was over a year. Um, and as I say, I started it simply as an intellectual exercise so I could speak of myself as still being a martial artist, even though I wasn't training. That's how it basically started. And what I used as a basic for it was the Jukuru Jiu-Jitsu that Professor Morris taught. But there were aspects of that that I didn't like in terms of how it progressed up, the techniques progressed up the rank. I thought you put, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, from my experience, I just thought they put like the really cool, hard techniques up front, and then as you get to brown belt and black belt, it was more like kicks, punches, and like some one staff kata. And well, coming from Shotokan, the punches and kicks came first. So there was that. And then what I did like about it was the hard throws, the pins. They did have strikes. Their wrist locks were really good, but I learned the wrist locks better under Mr. LaMonica. And I thought, if you added those wrist locks to Jukuru, that would be something. And then redefine how you went through the ranks. That would be something good. And then using all of that with the Shotokan ethos of like hardness and discipline. And when you're on the mat, you're on the mat to work, you're not having a coffee clutch. And then with the law enforcement, because Mr. LaMonica was a police officer, chief of police, and I was a correctional officer for 19 years, I thought there's that use of force continuum, I think was valuable to LEOs, and I think is valuable for civilians. Like, you can't teach somebody that if somebody grabs you by the lapel, that it's okay to break their jaw with an elbow strike, and on the way down break their nose with a knee strike. That, to me, you're going to get, I know from personal experience, you're going to find yourself in front of a judge. So I thought, well, I have to balance that out in some sort of philosophy. So I had the use of force continuum, which basically every law enforcement agency uses. And then I came up with a response continuum, like a psychological response to the initial, I was going to say intake, but the initial counter or attack that you're going to get, a verbal response, a physical response, the physical intervention. Now you're getting into the techniques, and then you have to report the assault, what you did and who did what to whom. And then, if you're just an ordinary person on the street and you're not a fighter or you're not in law enforcement, these situations can mess with your head a little bit. So you might need to get some counseling, just bounce it off somebody's idea, and then from there maybe family and get some support around it. So I put that in there and I spelled it all out, and I did a lot of research on what the FBI did as to the stats and statistics of people who are attacked and what that looks like. And there's a defensive it's a form that you can follow through. And I wrote a book about it, and I included that in the book. So there's a lot of philosophy going in there. So I would teach it somebody'd like to escape a technique just so that you can get away. And then if your escape is impeded, then you can step it up. You can't go full bore because you can't step it back down again.
Got it. Again, welcome everybody to Punch Kick Choke Chat. I'm going to now give Sensei Lonsdale his official big introduction. And thank you, Sensei, for sending us your bio. I've paraphrased it, and if I miss things or mispronounce them, please let me know. But Sensei was born in Liverpool, England, and a fun fact about him is that his mother's maiden name is Lennon, and John Lennon is actually his second cousin, twice removed. So we've never had that on the show before. His family immigrated to Canada in the 1960s, and he grew up in the Scarborough area. He began martial arts training in September of 1973, studying Shotokan karate under Kim Wong and actually Kim Dunn, who we know. Kim Dunn is a member of the Canadian Black Belt Hall of Fame. For 19 years, he was a corrections officer, as he's already mentioned. When his instructor Kim Wong returned to Malaysia, he wandered around dojos. He trained with people like Gary Hales, Tony and Leslie Pooley under Vic Arnold. In '86, Sensei transferred to Godrich, where he founded the Godrich Shotokan Karate Brotherhood. And we made the connection with Sensei through Glenn Archibald, who's still teaching with Sean DeJong and Godrich. Really, really great friends of ours, and really grateful they put us in touch with you. In 1988, through Rob Mellock, Sensei was introduced to Jiu-Jitsu, and Ron Yamanaka, Professor Richard Morris, who we know as Sensei Morris from Hanchi. He was one of Hanchitarian's instructors. So there's a lot of names here that we know and we have connections to. In It was Sensei Krupa who introduced Sensei Lonsdale to Hanshi Lamonica of the Hakuryu Jiu-Jitsu in the United States in Ohio, and that was in 1993. Um, Lots of certifications through his Ministry of Corrections. He was certified in self-defense instruction and the Koga method, um, mechanical restraints instructor, PR 24 instructor, straight baton instructor through John Terrian, George Sylvain. He became an instructor in NPPCT. That's their, I believe that's their pressure point system. He founded the Hakuryu Jiu-Jitsu Dojo, Shining Mountain Dojo, in honor of Mr. LaMonica. In 1994, Sensei's instructor Kim Wong died, and he took a sabbatical from work and he moved to Ohio, where he trained with Shihan LaMonica, assisting and teaching classes, law enforcement, and security classes. Um, After all of that, Sensei took that and systemized it into the thing that we were talking about, which is Saishindo. The syllabus of Saishindo was submitted to Soke Daniel uh, Ver Verkeri. Did I say that right? Okay, thank you. Um, and in 1998, it was officially recognized by the World Head of Family Soakship Council Hall of Fame and the Martial Arts Pioneers Legends Hall of Fame, and later by European Jiu-Jitsu Union. We're really happy to have you on the show here, Sensei. I could tell from reading your bio, you love martial arts, you live martial arts. The people that you're connected to love martial arts and live martial arts. And we're going to get back into your story now. We'll come back to Saishindo, but the one thing we always ask people is, once you came to Canada, what dragged you into your first dojo? Why did you go there? Like, what was it like, and how'd
Um,
you do?
how'd I do? My first
Yeah.
day, I passed out. I I was a tall, skinny kid, very immature for my age, and I was bullied on relentlessly through public school. In high school, it was a different story. Nobody knew me, so I wasn't going to take any guff from anybody. But I had a few a few little problems that I resolved. And then this is like 1973, 72, 73. And of course, Bruce Lee was big, and I loved that. But then this show came on, Kung Fu. And the thing that I liked about Kung Fu was that it was this unassuming individual who just wanted nothing but to be left alone, let him do his thing, and these people would pick on him. And when it got too bad, he was able to not only defend himself but win the day. And that really got into me. So when I went to college, I signed up for leisure education, and karate was part of the leisure education course. And I thought, well, this is going to be fantastic. I've already paid for it, so I'm going to go. But it wasn't kung fu; it was karate, and it was Shotokan karate. But I was thrilled because my instructor, Kim Hoi Wong, was Asian, and so I just thought this is great. I couldn't understand him at that time with his accent and coming through my ears. But I have never been an athlete. I've never done anything, not any sports other than kicking a ball around on the street. He put us through this warm up, and there was like, this is me trying to remember back. There seemed like 80 people in the class, maybe 100 people on the balconies watching, and I just hit the floor. Boom, passed right out. They dragged me to the side, and I stayed and watched. And I thought, well, that was interesting. And I came back. Well, the next class there must have been maybe 25, 30 people, and there was hardly anybody watching. And I just kept with it. And I met people, Kim Wong, Kim Dunn. He was part of the closest thing to a Bruce Lee character I've ever seen. At that time, he was like just perfection. Everything he did, the kata, the kumite, he scared me with the kumite. Um, he was good, and the warm ups from him, I used to groan when I knew he was going to take class because it was just brutal. When we went for black belts, there were no black belt students or brown belt students going for black belt that didn't throw up, not a single one of us. And usually working up to that, when we were brown belts, there was usually some blood on the dojo floor. It was very competitive, a great bunch of men, and a lot of those men, well, we were kids at that time. They went on to careers in the military and things of that nature. Really good people, and so that was my start into it. When I started the Goddard Shotokan Club, I introduced Goddard to this first tournament, martial arts tournament. So I tried to contact this is before internet, tried to get everybody in and around the area of southwestern Ontario to come to my tournament. And one guy in Seaforth said, "Yeah, yeah, that'd be great. I think he taught Wateroo. No, not Wateroo. I forget what kind of style it was. Kempo, I think it was." And he loved teki katas from Shotokan. He says, "I will teach you jujitsu if you'll teach me the teki kata." And I said, "Okay," because my dad was in the RAF, and he said jujitsu was dirty fighting. I thought, I'm a black belt, dirty fighting. It'll be fun. It'll be a lot of fun. His Rob Malik's dojo had, the traditional wood floor, the brick walls, and everything. And he says, "Okay, so let me show you a little bit of jujitsu." He says, "Throw a punch." I half-heartedly threw a punch, and he did a hip throw, and I landed on the floor. Boom. This is interesting because that hurt. And then I said, "Yeah, but that was just half-hearted. We're just playing around here. It wouldn't really happen in real life." Again, being a bit cocky, and of course, the second and third times got harder and harder and harder. Till the end, I said, "Yeah, but once on the ground, I would still be able to hit you." He said, "Well, you can go ahead and do that." All right, so I did, and then I was immediately subdued in a wrist lock. I said, "Okay, that's it. I have to learn this." And it was Rob Malik, that introduced me to Ron uh, Ron Yamanaka, who introduced me to my first jujitsu instructor, Daniel Krupa, and that's how I started.
Excellent. I'm going to go around the horn on this. Sensei Suino, do you remember when you were 8 years old, your first time walking into the dojo? What do you remember of it?
Yeah, it's really it's surprisingly vivid memory. Yeah. As I've told you before, I was a little kid with a big mouth, and my parents figured I probably wasn't going to make it to my teenage years. So they took me to the YMCA and took me to a judo class, and I just absolutely fell in love with it the minute I saw it. The guys did a demonstration. It seemed like a really long demo to an 8-year-old kid. They showed all kinds of throws and some pins, and invited us to try a little bit of stuff out. Of course, we were, the kids that were watching, we were just kids. We didn't know anything, but I don't know how my parents would have told the story, but I remember just being enthralled and just being ready to go back. So, yeah, I remember. I have really vivid movie in my head of that first day in judo class.
So it's Legacy, I'm going to come to you. What do you remember of your first day walking into your first dojo?
You know. um, I was just looking. Actually, I wanted to learn how to fight, and a guy that I knew said, "Hey, there's a new karate club opening up at such and such a place." So I showed up, and on the way in, there were like 60 people who did a ki all at once, and just was going to open a door, and it sort of startled me a little bit. So I thought, well, maybe I better come back some other time. So I walked out, and then I came back the following week. And when I walked in, class hadn't started yet. As soon as I stepped in, there was that, I'll say, aroma. And then when I put my foot on the floor and I walked in, I really felt comfortable, or, you know, I'd done a lot of sports in my life. So it was that similar aroma. And then I just opened my mind to it, to I'm not going to be the best guy in here, but I'll start training as hard as I can, and I'm still doing it. I just haven't stopped training.
Well, I'll share with everybody the first day I went to the dojo was at the University of Western Ontario, and Sensei Legacy was the karate teacher there. And the first time I saw him, he was wearing his karate pants and a Elgin County Board of Education winter kind of coat, and he was kind of off in the in the corner, and I came into the hallway and said, "Who's the instructor?" And I walked up to him. I didn't know to bow or do anything, so I just walked up and said, um, "How much does it cost to be a part of the karate club? What do I need to do?" And he said, "I just teach you karate. You talk to those people about the money side of things." And I was like, "Okay, I've been dismissed." So I went over and talked to those people about the money, which was an astounding $100 a year at that time to do karate with Sensei Legacy. And then I went in the room, and I also thought, from Windsor, playing lots of sports, that I was pretty tough. And when I walked in the room, I realized really quickly that I was not, right? So I watched lots of different demos, but the one thing that stood out in my mind was I saw one of Sensei Legacy's female black belt students, a skinny blonde lady, beat this guy so bad he looked very capable. Like he looked extremely like you would think a black belt should look. And she just beat him from one end of the dojo and then turned around and beat him up in the other direction. And I thought, I'm never leaving here. Like this is exactly where I need to be for the rest of my life. And it's almost 37 years later, and I'm still there. Um, Sensei Lonsdale, you said about a tournament. So you were in Scarborough, you were training in Shotokan, you moved to the Goderich area. Um, that's when you started to kind of do jujitsu, but you wanted to do a karate tournament. What happened with that? Like, did that open any doors for you? Did that tournament come off? Like, and did you continue to do it?
So great success, thanks mainly to the people the senseis in the area that supported us. And they took their students to us. I think it was in the Goderich District High School that we held it in. And it was a great success. Everybody had a really good time, lots of trophies. I was nervous because, I had to buy all the trophies. And, again, it was before internet, all the ads up out of my own pocket. And we recouped everything. It was great. And from that came my introduction to Sensei Malik, and then I was on the court on the path to learning jujitsu. So it was great. Plus, I made some friends with the other senseis, and I got invited to different seminars and trained with people like Kanazawa Sensei. That was just phenomenal. Um, Joe Lewis and Bill Wallace, a couple of seminars with them. It was really good as a result of getting everybody together for that first seminar or for that first tournament.
And did you do it after, or was it just one and done?
No, we did. So my memory, I know we did at least two. I think we did three. And then I did a symposium, basically a seminar of different martial arts coming together.
So when you were in Scarborough, um, you were a student, and when you went to Goderich, you started to teach. Is that correct? Am I getting that right?
I I helped teach or assisted teaching, and I think I taught a couple of classes for Sensei Hales because he's a firefighter. So he taught me some great stuff too. And so I took a couple of classes. I filled in for him a couple of times, and with the Kempo people also once or twice. So that I had some support there and learned a lot from doing that. But when I went to Goderich, it was going to be the Dainisi Kempo karate people that were going to really support me. But I had called my sensei in Malaysia, Sensei Wong. He said, "Well, I'm really glad that you're still into karate, but kind of disappointed you're not doing Shotokan. And you can't disappoint your sensei. You just can't do that." So I said, "You're right. I'll teach Shotokan the way you taught me," and that's what I did. And brought in people from our orbit from Scarborough to come out and do seminars with us. Um, Lincoln Alexander being one of them. I think he won the Pan Am Games one year, and Ross Smith was my senpai. He taught me so much, not just about karate, but about life. He was master at sweeps. He hit so hard. He really taught me a lot about life in general, keeping my cool under pressure, that type of thing. Not that not that it worked on me, but at least he helped teach me.
So when did the switch happen for you in your brain that you were actually going to teach? Like, Did you go to Godrich and think, I'm going to teach? Did you go to Godrich and there's just nothing there? So you wanted to build something? Like, what made you decide that I'm going from training to training and teaching?
Again, it was one of those things. How I came about with this, say, Shindo syllabus is like I was there. There was nothing in the area. There was a Shurin-Ryu club, but it was a little further away than what I really wanted. And I still had it in my ear that about what my sensei had told me. But the thing of it was, while I was looking for a house to buy there, the real estate agent, he and I started talking, and he said, "Well, you should start a karate class here." And just started writing Goddard. I'll be your first student. And I started thinking about it, and I thought, well, that might not be too bad an idea. So that's how I started using him, and we got like 10 people together, and it started a club, and it was a pretty successful club. Not in terms of making lots of money or anything, but every time we went to a tournament, we always came back with trophies, and more importantly, we came back with the respect of the people who were hosting the tournaments. Because I said to all my students, like, I don't care if you win or not. That's not the point. The point is that you comport yourself properly, be polite, and do your best, do your absolute, put it all out there. And they did. Glenn Archambault was one of them. He came back, by the way, with one of the biggest trophies. It was bigger than him. I was so jealous, but I wouldn't tell him that.
He must have been young because he's pretty big
He's a
right
big
now. That
man.
would have to
Yeah,
be a
it
pretty
was
big,
6 foot
pretty,
trophy.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so not bigger than him these days. Back
No.
then, maybe. Yeah.
Hey, Sensei Lonsdale, we've all been involved in karate in some form. It sounds like you've been involved in Shotokan for a long time. What do you think are some of the unique qualities of Shotokan, the unique positive qualities of Shotokan? And if you care to share any limitations or anything that you would, if you were going to wave a magic wand and make it better, what would those things be?
Oh, okay. I My loyalty is with Shotokan, and will always be with Shotokan because of my sensei, the late sensei Kim Wong. What I liked about it was that it was linear, it was fast, it wasn't frilly. There was no, at that time, no jumping, spinning kicks or anything like that. It was just get in, get your point, get out. At the time I started, it wasn't like what you see in the Olympics. It was You didn't need to have a judge conference to find out if you got tagged in the head or not. You know, you got knocked out,
Mhm.
basically. And so I like that it was simple. When I say simple, I mean it wasn't frivolous. It was direct action. I enjoyed that. Um, I like the connection to Japan, although my instructor didn't have a connection to Japan. But his instructors from Malaysia, and now I can't prove this to be true, but it was shown to me through somebody did a lineage, and his instructor, yeah, his instructor, and one of the men that signed my certificate is the guy who administered the paddling of that American kid back in the 80s who
Oh, in
destroyed a
Malaysia, you
Mercedes,
mean?
Jimmy Lowe, yeah, Jimmy Lowe, and he is like a god in Malaysia.
I
That
bet he
man,
is.
yeah,
Wow.
he's just an incredible practitioner, long since passed. Um, the thing of it was, it was not practical whatsoever, except psychologically, for my work as corrections, and I was searching for something that I could use. I mean, even in the 70s, like punching, not that you can defend yourself, but the perimeters are very, very tight, and of course they're even tighter now. Um, and so I wanted something that I could use. One, and so jumping a little bit forward, when I started learning more jujitsu, that was much more conducive to my work as a correctional officer.
I don't know if our all of our audiences are going to remember that
His
paddling in Malaysia. I can't. It was it an American teenager or a British teenager? And he did
name's
some
Steven,
he did some graffiti or something, right?
on a couple of Mercedes. Yes, that's correct.
And so they decided your punishment is I can't remember what it
It
was.
was going to be 10 strikes, and I think it was Bill Clinton. They negotiated it down to, I think it was 2 or 3.
Yeah, but it was a long negotiation. It was in the news for weeks,
For a
and
long time, yeah.
yeah,
And I had
and
no idea about this until maybe just a few years ago.
That's funny. Most of us were hoping that he would get paddled for doing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
You should get your 10,
You
10
get your
paddles.
10
If you
paddles,
graffiti people's Mercedes, get your
right?
paddling.
paddles were pretty vicious too.
Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh, can you
I wouldn't
imagine?
want to do it.
Right.
Um, since in Lonsdale, one thing that's coming through, like is philosophy. Like, you talk heavily about like the morality and the philosophy of martial arts and not just the physical techniques. So a question what value do you believe are most important for students to learn about that outside of the physical techniques, right? So what are the things you think that students need to learn? You got to learn the physical techniques too, but what do you think is most important for students in that other area, the philosophical side?
Well, in terms of the psychological, as we all know, we're all martial artists. Discipline and focus are utmost. But there's a sense of like when and for me, this gets back into the philosophy part of it, is when can you use your technique to defend yourself? Under what parameters can you do that? And what techniques would be allowable under the law? This business of, and I'm pretty passionate about this, and I don't mean to offend anybody if I go off the rails here, but this business of like, if somebody lays a hand on me, I can lay them out is ridiculous. I've been on the other side of, looking up at the judge going, but Your Honor, come on now, it's not fun and it can ruin people's lives. Now, fortunately for me, I had right on my side, and I was all right. I was acquitted and whatnot, and it was all due to the job. Um, Outside of that, in the public, again, if you bump into somebody in a bar, they spill beer on you and you knock them out or hit them or a fight ensues, more than likely you're gonna require a lawyer. And I don't think that's stressed enough. I still see people teaching as though like if somebody squeezes your arm too hard, you can elbow them or punch them in the face, and that's you're going to get yourself in trouble. And I think you're doing a disservice to ordinary people on the street. And it's funny that this comes up today because today I saw we were at Walmart. I live in Florida. I'm retired here. There was a guy walking around and he had a 380 on his hip, and I'm thinking to myself, with all my training in martial arts, I have never had to have a fight, in a Walmart or anywhere else. The last time I got physical was in 1986, and I was asked for help because somebody had assaulted a bartender. And what happens if I had been carrying a gun and drew the weapon and shot somebody, even if I didn't kill them? I mean, the consequence of something like that just far outweighs, I think, any justification for, going above and beyond the use of force. That's my main thing, I think. I
So
hope,
how do you teach that to your students?
but um, well, when I was teaching self-defense, I would start with somebody grabs your wrist. These are the ways you can escape a wrist grab. Now they grab you in a bear hug. You can get out of the bear hug. Now they're grabbing you from behind. You can get out of that. Now they're grabbing you in the head. And then at the end, it's like you're blocking one punch, two punch, a kick. Now they got you on the ground. You can get away from that. And then at the end of the not the class, but the course, you put all that together. You run through the whole thing, the whole gamut. But in my book, and I think I put it in their handouts, there's a response continuum. Like this is what you can do, and I've also identified the parameters of the force being used against you. Like annoying assault is annoying assaultive behavior is like somebody grabbing you, and then you can get like um, exceptionally assaultive is like you're getting two punches. Intentionally assaultive behavior is somebody trying to beat you up, and exceptionally assaultive behavior is like you've got maybe more than one person, or they're actually trying to kill you. And so there's a step-by-step continuum that spells that out that coincides with the response continuum as best
Thank-
as I can.
Okay, no, that's great. So, Srina, I'm going to ask you that same question. Uh, what values do you believe are most important for students to learn beyond just the physical techniques? And how do you teach those to them?
Well, I think that this in a simpler way, putting it simpler, what some of the things that Sensei Lonsdale said. I think that as you develop as a martial artist, you need to develop calmness, because we're not supposed to be barbarians, right? We're supposed to be classical martial artists who are also elevated human beings. So calmness and patience are really essential. It takes a long time to develop those. It's not something, when I joined martial arts again, again as a teenager, I wanted to be strong and confident. I wasn't thinking about those things, but I think they're more important uh, uh, in the long run. So, and then, as I've said many times, for a career martial artist, for somebody who's in it 30, 40, 50 years, one of the values that I hold highest now is service to others, so making sure other people have a great experience in the martial arts, that they learn some of the same values and lessons that I learned, and that their lives are enriched by it, not just by itself, but also, outside the dojo, in their families, in their careers, in their personal development. So, yes, confidence, strength, the commonly espoused values, but for me, calmness, patience, and service.
And how do you teach that? Is it just part of the class structure? Do you lecture on it? Do they innately learn it?
I hope they don't think I'm lecturing, but I often mention it. Occasionally, hold forth for a minute or two. But I don't think people are come to class to listen to me. They come to class to learn martial arts, so they don't listen. I don't talk about it too much, but I talk about it in short bursts often. And I try to be a role model, and I expect my black belts to model the same values.
Thank you, Sensei. Sensei Legacy, how about you? What values do you believe are most important for students to learn beyond just the physical techniques of karate?
Well, I'll just say peace amongst everyone, but that's not always like that. So you have to be able to recognize when you're going to be assaulted, like taking those steps down. I'm just going to put it this way: is that the longer you're in a fight, if it's a dangerous fight, the more of a chance you've got to get hurt. It's if you're in an altercation, and it doesn't always have to be physical. If a guy's, I'm using this extreme. If a guy says to you, "I'm going to shoot you," do you have to wait for him to shoot you before you defend yourself? I find that a bit extreme, and I don't think police do that either. Yeah, I've seen a guy who just say the wrong thing, and then they'd gang up on him, turn him over, throw handcuffs on him, whip in the back seat, and chain him to the floor. So when there's no police around, what do? You can't wait for that to happen. That's the reason why you take in martial arts, to defend yourself. Or if you see some guy who's got a person, doesn't have to be a guy, has a knife, let's say a lady's throat, and she has somebody with her, a child or something like that. Like you have you have to make the decision. Are you going to bring this to a stop, or are you going to call the police? So I personally see things as violence. Um, you don't want to start violence, but uh, you want to stop it, and you have to get physical. It's you can run, but you can only run for so long. So that's why you take martial arts. I think it's just the choice of where you're going to defend, where you're going to put yourself into action. And a fight doesn't always start by somebody grabbing your wrist or bending your finger. And the guy looks at you and then picks up a stick and starts walking towards you, and you're not playing hockey. Well, I think it's time to go. You know, I didn't spend 54 years to defend myself. Uh, Another thing is this: is you practice self-defense and you practice war during peacetime. The, the military, the reason that we're all sitting at home feeling good today is because the United States have proven that if you come and disturb our friends and our citizens, that we're going to do this to you. and then you can't fake it. You got to do it. So peace is because of war. That's
I
why that's why everyone's home comfortable.
don't disagree with anything that anybody has said. The only thing I'll chime in on, and it's something you alluded to since legacy, is I try and tell my students to plan ahead, right? Like, don't wait until things are happening to you to try and figure out what your response is going to be. Try and think about that ahead, right? Like, yeah, to your point, said Lonsdale, like, if somebody walks up and grabs you by the elbow, is that maybe for some people, that's a threat that they need to respond to. For me, it's not. I need to think about my skill set, my abilities, where I am. But for, another person, their plan will be different based on what they know. And all my students are different. Like the 8-year-old kid is going to be different than the Robert Chlumsky, who's like fourth degree black belt, 6 feet tall, 185 pounds, lightning fast, trained for 25 years. He can have different responses than some people can have. I also like to tell my students that the greatest lessons they're going to learn is not from me teaching them philosophy, it's from them fighting. They're going to get more discipline from fighting because when they get like punched in the head, they're going to be like, okay, I got to block that damn thing. They're going to get more compassionate from fighting because when they get kicked in the gut, they're going to be like, damn, that hurts. I don't want to. Hopefully, if they're a nice person, they're not like, I'm not going to kick somebody in the gut because it's going to hurt them. So that's where I take it. I think the chaos of fighting is also one of the most zenful experiences you can have because when you're sparring and fighting, and I'm not talking about I'm not talking about out on the street. I'm talking about in the dojo when you're mixing it up. You can't possibly be thinking about your problems or your girlfriend or what you're going to do at work tomorrow. You got to just live in that moment and fight. Otherwise, you're losing bad, right? I'll just say that. You're losing bad if you're not in that moment. So before we move on, Sensei Lonsdale, we all chipped in on some stuff. Do you want to chime in on any of that? What thoughts do you have in your brain as we're all talking about these things?
I would just mention situational awareness because I was listening to what Sensei Legacy was saying there, and I totally agree that you have to be aware of your surroundings. And like what you were saying about somebody grabbing you by the elbow, that I don't think that warrants anybody breaking the guy's nose. You have to create a distance. Now, if he comes onto you after that, well, of course, you're going to go up a couple of steps. So there's that. But like people used to say, well, hey, what would you do if, how do you defend yourself if you go to a biker bar? Well, that's easy. I don't go to biker bars. I mean, that there's going to be a problem there, or at least you have a solid base to make a good have a good suspicion that trouble might brew in a biker bar if you're not a biker. So why would you go there? You're like, yeah, you have the right to, but is that the most prudent thing for you to do? So those are my thoughts on some of that.
I like
Certain
that.
amount,
I'm
certain
sorry. Go
amount of
ahead.
people.
Go ahead, Sensei. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Sensei. Like I say, I didn't mean to talk
I
over you.
just mean, of course, there has to be a certain amount of reason. Somebody grabbing your arm doesn't, but if it's going to escalate or you have to make a decision, maybe if you're in a biker bar and somebody grabs your arm, what do you think about that? You, the guy's not gonna want your phone number because he wants to go, to the bingo or something like that. Right? So you do have to be careful where you go, but you also have to recognize when there's danger. You don't want to get stabbed before you decide it's too dangerous. And I think that we just by doing a lot of fighting, like our students do a lot of fight, you recognize what is dangerous to you and what can be just brushed off. And I agree with that part as well. I'm not just saying that when it's time to do self-defense, you got to end it as fast as you can because the longer you're fighting, the more time there is for you to get injured.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, Sensei, because I often think that, and I've stated to my black belts, being a black belt just means you can make more mistakes than the average person, right? Like there's a moment in time when things should be done. And being a black belt means maybe you move beyond that and you can still overcome it, whereas another person can't. They have to, if they don't deal with it in that moment, they're going to get beat down bad. Um, but I agree with you 100%. You need to do it now. And the longer it goes, it's probably worse for the other person too, actually, if it goes longer. Not just you, but the other person as well. Um, but we're talking about as we're talking about teaching, I'm starting to think a little bit, and I'd be curious, Sensei Lonsdale, to hear your thoughts on, and again, we'll probably go around the horn on this as well, um, but what do you believe is the most important responsibility of a martial arts instructor today? Because it can't be just, we're talking about a lot of things here, philosophy, self-defense, we're in a privileged position to lead other people, and if you're going to tell somebody, hey, this is what I feel are the most important things for a martial arts instructor to be um, delivering to their students.
Most important thing
Yeah, like,
aspect of teaching, well,
well, your biggest responsibility as a martial arts teacher, what is it? Because it's not the same as a student. As a teacher, it's something different.
I guess the safety of the student. I don't mean just in class, but in the attitude that you know, put on them when they go outside the dojo. Are they going to take what you learn and then start bullying other people? Or are they going to walk knowing that they're confident, they're not as fearful as they were about anything that might happen outside the dojo um, when they walked in and had their first class? Fear, I think, is what breeds violence a lot of the times. Like some internal fear that you don't think you're tough enough, therefore you got to put it on somebody else. Or I don't know. I was bullied a lot when I was a kid, and my father was pretty tough. He's listen, if you don't go downstairs and hit that guy, then I'm going to hit you. And I was more afraid of my father than anybody. So well, that's what I did, but I don't think that that's really. I think you need to take that and sort of mold it to be more socially acceptable. If you get my drift, so you do need the physical, but I'm really big on the whens and whys and wherefores, and like don't get yourself in trouble. So as far as your responsibilities is the safety of your student, the techniques that are being applied to him, the techniques that they are applying in class, and their attitude when they're outside of class.
Thank you, Sensei. Suino Sensei, where do you take that? What do you think the most important responsibilities of a martial arts instructor are?
For me, it's tied up with the also being a dojo leader. They're not necessarily the same thing, right? But I tell everybody that leads in my dojo, their first responsibility is to make sure that the students love the practice, that they love the dojo. Um, uh, and that doesn't mean, that you just coddle them. It just means that you're training with joy. You make things clear, you encourage them, you're a good role model. Um, because if they love the dojo, that means they're going to stay longer. And if they stay longer, they'll start to unearth the real benefits and secrets of the martial art. Um, this is all premised on the foundation of really good classical martial arts with the heritage and with good student teacher lineage. You can't you can't just have nice philosophical values without a solid system and without hard training. I think those kind of go without saying, although I'm saying it anyway because I want to make sure the audience hears it. I don't want my dojo and I know none of our dojos are effete, right? We're not just in there doing cosplay. We're training really, really hard and we're adhering to the values that we learned from our instructors. But I want the people in my dojo and our communities blessed us with great participation. I want them to love the dojo and I want them to love them. I want them to love it passionately for as long as possible. Because the longer I do martial arts, the more I love it and the more things I get out of it.
Thank you. Sense legacy, most important responsibility for a martial arts teacher.
I think one of them is to instill confidence in people. So, and preventing from producing bullies, that those kind of persons that are going to use it for the wrong purpose. creating good citizens. It's like uh, you're making the world a better place one by one. Uh, That's the general thing. There's so many things you could say there, but that thing, I think that about covers it. It's it's a hard job, but somebody's got to do it.
Um, I'm going to chime on in on this one a little bit. I think it's important you don't lie to your students. Um, right? Don't tell them fantasy stuff about, like what martial arts is. Tell them what martial arts actually is. Don't tell them weird things to try and get them to love it. Show them what it is, and if they don't love it, that's on them. That's not on you. So don't lie to them about things. If they ask a question and you don't know, don't make something up. Just say, I don't know, and then go figure that out and come back. And that's where they're helping you to be a better instructor. Um, Another thing I would say is, well, everybody has to conform in a dojo environment. They have to put a white uniform on. They got to take their shoes off. They all got to follow the rules and bow. They're all uniquely different people, and don't try and punch all the students out of a cookie cutter mold, right? Like that I don't think is a healthy environment for students because then only the elite are going to succeed. And your dojo is so I'm not saying don't try and push people to their best, but people's bests are different. And I hope my students aren't Randy Dauphin. I hope they're all their own person who are doing karate. They don't have to be me to be great at karate. And I would encourage students who are listening to me they're not an extension of you, right? They are and they're not. Like they're their own people. Um, and let them take this art and live with it as themselves, not as you. So that's where I take that. So Lonsdale, when we go around the horn, I always like to come back to the question with the first person that kicked it off to just see if you have any other thoughts or um, anything you want to chip back in on that as we've been talking about it.
What you just said there, I think I picked that up from my instructor Kim Wong back in '73. You're like 10 years out from the dojo wars that they had in the States, where you get opposing dojos out there doing harm to each other. In some cases, I think there was a murder. My instructor, Sensei Wong, said, "Look, this is what I'm teaching, and this is what we do. But by all means, go to another martial art, see what they teach. You'll either learn something new, or you'll learn that what we're doing is good as well. You'll have a good foundation." And so when I was like, I forget what year it was, but it was like green belt, intermediate or whatever. I went to Taekwondo dojos, Shunryu, Shito-ryu, everything, but I couldn't get in. I could only get in to observe a Kung Fu class, but I learned so much. I did the same thing. I took it upon myself to do the same thing when I started with jujitsu, going around to different clubs. I mean, yeah, you got to run the gauntlet. You're going to take your lumps, but you learn more by putting yourself, by testing yourself that way. All respectful, nothing was untoward, but you come out with some bruises, but you come out with good friends, and you come out with knowing a little bit more about yourself and about others. And I also like what Bruce Lee had once said, like, people only have two arms and two legs. There's not going to be that much different. It's just martial arts is an expression, and how you express yourself emotionally or physically through the martial art that you're doing. So when people say, "Well, which martial art is better?" Well, there is no better than martial art. It's what you can do with what you've been taught that makes you that person the best.
Thank you for that. We, in a few minutes, are going to get to your 10 questions, Sensei Lonsdale, and they're the same 10 questions we ask everybody who comes on. But before that, the number one, you've mentioned many names, but the name that keeps coming up over and over again is Sensei Wong, Sensei Wong, Sensei Wong. And I can just tell he's been very influential on you. Why don't you just take a couple moments and talk about him? What do you want people to understand about Sensei Wong or know about him? This record is going to live on forever. So, what did he look like? What was he good at? How did he teach you? Like, why are you so connected to him?
He was he was just a wonderful man. He was It was gentle but strong, like a iron bar. But I mean, psychologically, he had a childlike innocence about him. His his voice, as I remember it, it's been so long now. He died in '93, but it was almost childlike, and he would giggle. But he had to be the fastest man I've ever seen in real life. Um, he said, put your hands shoulder width apart and clap your hands as fast as you can. He said, that's about 7/10 of a second. He said, I'll hit you 3 times before you can clap your hands. And he did. Went nose, stomach, groin before my hands clapped. I mean, he was just phenomenal and gentle, like as I said. And he was never overly critical, was the other thing. And I think, I forget, one of you gentlemen mentioned this. I think it was um, Sawano Sensei said about the joy of training. He was never overcritical. Whatever you did, when I first started, I couldn't kick above my knee. I was like an orange belt, and my side kick was my knee. I was so embarrassed, and I just kept working at it, kept working at it. He was gentle about it. He never said, "Oh, well, you got to do this, you got to do that." Just work at it, and just that quiet confidence in me gave me confidence in myself. And sure enough, when you put the work in, you put the discipline and the focus in, you attain these goals. And that's not just for martial arts techniques, that's for all of life. He was just a great guy. But that's what I remember most about him. That, and like in '73, when he's telling me to go to other dojos when like everybody else was so pigeonholed, even then I thought that was progressive of him.
And what was his dojo like, since the
We never
Lonsdale?
we never a freestanding proper dojo. It was always out of either the like a library or like a basement of a library. It was in Parkdale, in Ontario, which is a pretty rough area in Toronto, and of course at the colleges. Now in Malaysia, it's got a beautiful dojo.
When did he go back? Is that
He, I can't remember. Around about 90, maybe 88, something like that.
and he was teaching there? He's had a
Well,
dojo
he's
there?
from there. Yeah, he went back and he became uh, he was he was the head instructor, chief instructor, and then he would come over and do some seminars. He came over and graded my first black belts, which for me was just the best because I knew what was happening. I was the one who was being graded, you know. Yeah, he was so good. And Kim Dunn, another man that really influenced a lot, influenced me a lot. Just a technician, and again, both of them have that quiet confidence. But I spent more time with Sensei Wong than Sensei Dunn, and then the most time I think I spent with Senpai, he's like 2 grades higher than me. Ross Smith, I've lost contact with him unfortunately, but he was amazing. He would take me aside. Listen, kid, this is how you should do it. This is what's going to happen. Why are you doing it? This, not just karate techniques, but in life. I was, like I said before, bullied. I think I had some frustration as a result of that, some unresolved anger issues, certainly father-son issues, and he was trying to straighten me out. And I think I just hope. My biggest hope is that I've lived up to what they taught me. That's my only wish.
Well, I'm sure you are, Sensei. So, Sensei, um, we have these 10 questions we ask every guest, and there's some ground rules. The number one ground rule is you get 10 minutes for these 10 questions. But here's the other ground rule. If you don't get through all 10, it doesn't matter, right? If you get through three, that's fine. If you get through five, that's okay. Also, if you get through all 10 in 5 minutes, that's okay. But at 10 minutes, we're going to stop. So we ask you to answer as impulsively as you like, but expand also, like, and feel free. And remember, when they're done, we can come back to something, right? If there's a question that we're asking you and you're like, you got like you really want to get into it, we'll get into it after the 10. So um, we're going to start. I'm going to start my timer on my phone. And we will start at the end of me asking you your first question, and Suino Sensei and I will go back and forth on these. So, the first question we have for you is what is the most effective move in your martial arts arsenal?
My most effective move. The one is my go-to move is the Mawashigari to the ribs, followed by an elbow to the head.
Love it.
Nice. Just making some notes on this. Might need this later. Uh, I think I know the answer to this, Sensei, but uh, I'd like to ask the question and see how you answer. Who is the most influential martial artist in your life?
Sorry, I didn't hear you, Sensei.
Sorry, Kim Hoi Wong.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
Um, okay, who do you think is the most influential martial artist of all time, and why do you think they're the most influential?
All time. I guess I probably that's hard to say because there's so many greats out there. I've met I was lucky enough to meet a few of them like Fumio Demira and Kanazawa Sensei, just brilliant people. But for me, I'd have to say probably Bruce Lee because of the attention that he brought to martial arts and how he um, his philosophy about the martial arts and his dedication to the martial arts. Um, but I'm not locked in on that.
Okay. Well, listen, you mentioned a name. You're in good company because we had Demora Sensei on this show. We did his last interview. So
I had the opportunity of hanging around him for maybe about half a day at a seminar. I was carrying his bags for him, and he was telling, there was a couple of us, and he was telling us stories, and he was delightful, just delightful.
amazing. We'll get into that after. I've already noted we want to talk about Demora Sensei.
Sensei, what excites you the most about the next 5 years of martial arts or martial arts training?
Uh, I don't know. What would excite me is I would like to see martial arts in the school systems the way they have it in Japan. And I don't really care what kind of martial art it is, but I think it's important. I think it teaches you everything that you need to know about life and how to keep your life and how to save a life. So that's what I would like to see.
I love that answer. I don't think anybody's ever answered that in that particular way before.
No. And I just saw my daughter walk through and she says that all the time too, that martial arts should be put back into schools. If heaven exists, Sensei Lonsdale, what do you want to hear God say when you get there?
Don't know. I really don't know.
No problem.
Do you have a do you have a favorite film or TV martial artist, whether or not they're actually a martial artist in real life?
Um, oh, geez. There's I like the John Wick series, and they kind of wrap up a lot of the different styles of martial arts: Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, karate, Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, even some Kale, Salat. Um, that I enjoy watching them probably the most for their technical, especially the I guess it was the third one with Mark Dos Santos.
Yep.
Yeah,
If Sean Benson was here, he'd be loving your answer right now. He's a huge fan of those John Wick series and Keanu Reeves. Um,
because they killed his dog, and I love dogs. This is what you're going to get, people. Leave my dog alone.
okay, is there a martial artist, living or dead, of all time that you wish you could train with, and why?
So many. Oh, geez, I don't know. Um, I like to train with Kim Wong and Kim Dunnigan and really learn, really go at it. But then I like jujitsu so much. Um, I don't know. I have a regret. I regret I never learned Yedo. I had a couple of classes and a couple of seminars, and I would like to have really become proficient in that because of I think it sharpens the mind because nothing, like you were saying earlier, nothing sharpens your focus than blocking a kick to the head. Nothing, I think, can sharpen your brain, your focus, than seeing a 4-foot razor coming down at you.
Listen, Sensei Lonsdale, I know a couple guys who can help you with your wish if you really, really decide you want to learn some Iaido. I know a
Oh,
couple of
I
people.
would love that.
It's never too late.
Never too
True, I
late.
think was what I was looking at.
Great, great answer. Sensei, if everyone in the world could have the greatest benefit that you've gotten from martial arts, what benefit would that be?
Well, I'm going to say confidence, but I think as Hanshi Legacy was saying about peace, inner peace, knowing that you can create the peace if you have to. Um, and I'm not saying that I can. I'm saying that that's what I would like to aspire to. That's the attribute I think is best.
You're doing great here, Sensei. You still got you got over 3 minutes to answer your last two questions. So you're doing great. And the last two questions always come as a pair. So it's kind of like one question. So once you start, if the timer goes off, then you can go off the rails here on this one if you want. Um, what is your greatest achievement and what is your greatest regret?
My greatest achievement. Uh, I think getting my Shodan from Sensei Wong was my greatest achievement. That opened up the door for everything else. Um, my biggest regret was that he went back to Malaysia, and I couldn't find work that didn't entail shift work, and I wish I had been able to have like some sort of 9 to 5 job and studied with him, and then branched out and opened my own dojo, like a freestanding dojo with the wood floors, and I would have loved that. That's what I would have loved. I really regret not being able to do that. Like the magnificent dojo that Shan Archibald and Dijon have in Goderich. Although I haven't been there, I've seen the pictures. It looks absolutely stunning. I
It's
would love
ama
that.
it's amazing. It's like the Matrix. When you go in there, it's like that dojo from the Matrix with Keanu Reeves. Like, um, yeah, you should get in there sometime. You should come back up here to Canada and go in there. They'd love to see you. Sensei, that was great. You did great. You still have 2 minutes left. So, but listen, you mentioned something in your 10 questions, and I wouldn't mind sharing some notes around the table with you because you said you spent an afternoon with Demora Sensei. Um, we had him on this show actually just a couple weeks ago. We had his the person who succeeded him, Tan Sensei, came on the show. Since Legacy and I have we also got to spend some personal time with him. Love to hear about yours, and then we can share ours. Like, how did you connect with Demora Sensei, and what was that afternoon like?
I can't quite remember the details. I know it was a tournament seminar situation. I think it was with World Kabuto, but I'm really not sure. It was a long time ago. I think I was just knee down at the time, but somehow I ended up like beside him, and I ended up carrying his bags for him, just following him around, and then there would be like two or three other people, and he was so jovial. He was like, I mean, I knew who he was and everything. I'd read his books. I've seen him do like the Shitoru, which Kim Wong also studied. He was first a Shitoru practitioner, and especially with his weaponry, his Kobudo. So I knew all about him, but I wasn't expecting that he was so funny, so jovial. And he was saying like when he was doing stunt work for Pat Moriarty on the Treasury agent show that he was on, he had to climb up a cliff, and he got at the top, and he's like, "Oh, that really hurt." He couldn't understand what was going on, and they told him, "You're having a heart attack." And he said, "Well, that," he said then he realized that he shouldn't have stopped eating like a Japanese, and he should have stopped eating pizza all the time. So he went back to his Japanese diet. That I just thought was hilarious. The way you said it too was and acted it out was pretty funny. The other thing you said was on the Karate Kid series of that kick that they did. He said that he made that up, that wasn't quite technically part of the syllabi that he was teaching, as I recall. And I thought that was kind of interesting, and the relationship between him and Pat Moriarty that he was talking about. And yeah, and I think it was through him that Steven Seagal got noticed.
Well, that was his big mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's got to make one, right?
Right, right. So I always talk trash about Steven Seagal. Hopefully he'll come on and or want to beat me up or something. That would help our ratings with our show. But um, I guess Srina Sensei, what do you want to share about Demora Sensei that you remember, if you have any memories?
Well, yeah, I mean, I wasn't with you guys when you saw him personally, but he was great on the show. And everybody that's ever known him has said the same thing. He was just a super kind man, absolutely loved karate, believed that everybody who was involved in karate was part of his family. And he did so much for the world of the martial arts. Um, you know, in inside the dojo and also on the big screen. Just fantastic gentleman.
I like that he's a karate guy who does the Iaido. Like he loves swords and he loved doing karate. And I remember when we asked, how many swords do you have, Sensei? Ton started to laugh and said he has a shipping container full of swords, that he has an entire shipping container full of swords. Um, but I do remember Suna Sensei that he said, everybody in karate is my family, even you guys. And I believe he actually embodied that. Like that was not, he wasn't just saying that, he actually believed that and he lived it. Sensei, Legacy, what do you want to say about your memories of Demora Sensei?
When we were talking to him, we were out in Vancouver, and he said he he was on a dialysis machine, so he could only spend a certain amount of time, and most people probably just talk him up and down about martial arts. So Randy's a fish, likes to fish. He's a fisherman, and I'm from the East Coast. So I like fish and fishing. And we just happened to touch on that, and he went off. He, he talked, and we talked way past the time, twice the amount of time that he wanted to be there. And the guy who took care of him said, "We really have to go because we have to get back to the room, to the machine." But he really liked fishing. He talked a lot about fishing, didn't he? About
Yeah,
salmon fishing and all sorts of stuff like that. And I think he enjoyed that because we didn't talk about martial arts too much.
right. Yeah, I remember Sensei Lonsdale, the reason why it happened was because we had him on the show, we had him on Punch Kick Choke Chat, and then Sensei Legacy had to teach some seminars in Vancouver, British Columbia, and he was out there with the TV show Shogun. They're redoing that. Um, and so I texted his student Ton and said, "Hey, does Sensei Legacy and I are in Vancouver. Does Demora Sensei need anything? Does he need a coffee? Does he need something?" And then literally like 10 minutes later, he texted me back and said, Demora Sensei says the production crew takes good care of him, but he wants you guys to come to his hotel this evening and hang out with him so he can meet you and chat with you in person. And so it wasn't just Sensei Lacey and I. I think Scott Bowen was there with us, and Nick McLaren, and my wife Christine was there, and my daughter was there. Uh, and he really liked showing my wife and my daughter him fighting a tiger on one of the sets, this giant Bengal tiger. And he said, yeah, it really bit me. It really scratched me. He was like, he's, yeah, so just an awesome guy. Like just so I'm glad you brought his name up, Sensei Lonsdale, and we could get into that a little bit. Um, but listen, Sensei Lonsdale, time is real. We are at the end of the show now. An hour and a half has flown by, as it always does. And the way we like to end the show is we like to share our thoughts with you about our discussion, things we've learned from you. And then we give you the final word, and then we end the show based on that. But before we do that, we always give thanks to our crew and the people who help us out with this. So we always like to say thanks to Robert Chomsky, Andrei Sedyshev, Justin Shea, Mike Russell, Josh Kitchens, Daniel Holland, Christiana Landolt, Emily Ruth Driscoll, Stavros Andridi. And I also always like to say thank you to Sense of Legacy and Sense of Suino for helping with all this stuff. Benson doesn't, but I'm a better student, so I always thank them as well. And yeah, so Sense of Suino, what do you want to say about our time tonight with Lonsdale Sensei?
Sensei, thank you so much for coming on. This has been great. I really enjoyed the thoughtful way that you talk about your use of force continuum and kind of the difference between um, street fighting, self-defense, and martial arts competition. You had some great quotes that I'll take away. One of the first things you said was it's not necessary to be harmed in order to learn to do harm. And that's interesting. I haven't processed that yet. I want to think about it a little bit as time goes on. Um, like you, when I saw the show Kung Fu, I absolutely fell in love with it. I love the idea of a loner who's out for justice and just wants to be left alone. Um, you said something that is part of my ethos or mantra in my own dojo, which is the confidence in me gave me confidence in myself. That's a great lesson for leaders. Um, and then I think my all-time favorite comment tonight from you, and I have massive respect for this, is that you said you regret not having learned Iaido.
Thank you, Sense Tutor. Sense Legacy, what do you want to say about our time with Sensei
Uh,
Lonsdale?
it was a good time. Really, we're making a human map of martial arts in Canada and the United States and really the rest of the world. And it was nice to fill in some of the blanks with you in Southern Ontario with the Goderich area and that. So we appreciate you coming on the show and filling in some blanks. Okay, thanks a lot. Hope maybe we'll see you again sometime.
I have this feeling, Lonsdale Sensei, that chance separated our paths because I have this feeling that the Shorin-ryu dojo was probably one of our Shorin-ryu dojos because Sense Legacy had karate schools in the Goderich area as well, in and around that time. So, um, had you chosen to go to that one, this might have been an entirely different conversation. But I'm happy with the way your martial arts path has gone because it's given us something more. So I like just all the discussions we had about Saishindo, that you wanted to be self-defense based, right? But you openly admitted that you were not a fighter, not very athletic. You didn't do a lot of sports. But in corrections, you wanted to be self-defense based. I also liked all about the philosophy methods we talked about at the beginning of this show. Deep thoughts on that. Most people would, you know, start something and kind of cater it to just hurting people the most efficient way. And I like the fact that you put a lot of philosophy into that. I like that you said that you passed out on your first day, that you walked into the dojo, that you like passed out, but you did come back and you're still here standing now. So that's a lesson for everybody, right? Also, Kung Fu. I'm so happy you brought that show up. My dad used to watch that show like crazy. And when we asked you about the most influential or actor, I was expecting you to maybe say David Carradine, right? Just based on your youth. But I love that show too. Um, Listen, I think Sensei Wong will be very proud of you. Just I've only spent an hour and a half talking to you, but I think Sensei Wong would be very proud of you. It's always nice to have a martial artist on the show who has such deep respect for their instructor, and that comes through clear. And it's really nice that you shared so much about him, and people can learn about him through your words because they won't be able to learn about him firsthand anymore, sadly. Um, Most effective move, roundhouse kick and an elbow. Can't say that I would disagree with that. I've used that myself a couple times. Most influential in your life, Sensei Wong, of course. all time Bruce Lee. Sense of Legacy also said Bruce Lee. Lots of people say Bruce Lee, and I think it's probably actually right. Um, I like what you said the next 5 years you would like to see martial arts in the school systems. I think that's a big one. People should listen to that. You don't care what style it is, and I agree with that too, but I do care what teacher it is. I think it needs to be an impassioned teacher, not just one of the McDojo places, right? Not a revenue generating instructor primarily. Um, what do you want to hear God say? He said, I don't know, right? Like, good. I like that answer. Um, I really liked your regret, even though since I'm not talking about the EIDO one. I'm talking about the open in a building that I don't know if maybe try and do it, Sensei, if you can. But listen, I really liked having you on the show. I'm so happy that Shihan Archibald connected us and got you to come on. We really like him and Sean DeJong as well. And if you ever are in the area, if you ever do come up, please do let us know because I think I'm going to the Goddard's Dodo to teach in May. They've asked me to come and teach Iaido in May. So anyway, thanks so much, Sensei. And what do you want to say about your time with us tonight?
I enjoyed it. I always enjoy talking about martial arts. Um, and with the esteemed company gathered here today, I feel it was an honor for me, a real privilege to listen to what you all had to say as well. So thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome, Sensei.